Welcome everyone to the panel Creating Culture-Focused Retail in the UAE. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Mick.
That's Mick. And we're just going to quickly introduce ourselves as the moderators of this panel. Mick, why don't you go first?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining, and sorry for the technical difficulties. Just really quick, Ryan and I have been working with this group of panelists that you see before us for quite some time now. Aldar has got this amazing development, which Saud will be walking us through in a little bit. But my background is in everything from architecture to brand strategy to marketing. And Ryan and I have had the opportunity to meet all of these amazing folks over the past couple of years in a bunch of different ventures. And we're excited to bring everybody together to talk about how to change culture through development. Ryan?
Yeah, awesome. Very excited as well. I'm the CEO of MCL, where we're developing content and earthing insights and trends through our retail tours, workshops, and placemaking activities around the world. I'm actually currently sitting in Germany, and as I think maybe some folks have already heard, we have a pretty international panel today covering a lot of time zones, folks coming from Korea, UAE, New York, LA, and we're going to let each of them obviously introduce themselves really briefly. But just really quick blurb of kind of why we're here today and why we created this panel and why we think it's so relevant, is that retail, and especially good retail in its physical form, we believe is really moving from transactional to culturally immersive. And we've rounded up what we believe are some of the most culturally immersive brands that in some form or fashion are intersecting with a very culturally immersive development, which Mick just alluded to as well in Abu Dhabi, the Grove. And we've been fortunate to obviously curate a lot of these brands through our placemaking activities. I won't go too much more into depth. I'll let our panelists introduce themselves and let Saud introduce himself as well, and the Grove in Abu Dhabi. With that, Choljun, do you want to kick it off for us?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Choljun Park. I'm the CEO, publisher, and head of retail at Kinfolk. I'm currently sitting in previously all over the world. Hope to do that pretty soon also. Kinfolk is the leading independent lifestyle and culture magazine and business platform focused around the theme of slow living and essentialism. Our team in Copenhagen and London focus more on the book and magazine publishing led by our editor-in-chief, John Duns, while I focus on building the next generation lifestyle culture business platform, leveraging the Kinfolk brand, content, community, and partnerships around the world that we have built over the last decade. Previously, I spent over 20 years as a management consultant at Bain & Company. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very glad to be here.
Great. And Anahita?
Hi everyone. Good morning from New York. I'm Anahita Mechanic. I'm the head of scent design and the co-founder of Centronics. What we have created with Frederick Dwaring, who is my partner in crime and the artist, and I would say the mastermind behind our platform, is pretty much the world's first public-facing AI-based platform, which is called Algorithmic Perfumery under our larger brand, which is Every Human, that allows everyone to create their custom scents. So it's a pretty radical execution of a vision of mass customization of scent for each and all people, where we've shifted I would say the perspective of how the industry currently works, coming at it from an artistic genesis that we'll get into. But basically, our philosophy is human agency. Let the people decide and let them do and choose what they like, especially when it comes to a medium as visceral and as personal as scent, which is still somewhat inaccessible.
Awesome, great. Scott?
Hey, I'm Scott Lowen. I'm the founder and CEO of Museum of the Street and the Forum. Museum of the Street is a new museum focused on urban contemporary art and street art. We got started a few years ago in partnership with the nonprofit RED, to do the largest street art exhibition around the globe, focused on raising awareness and ultimately money for the fight against AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. Purpose of Museum of the Street is really to capture the energy and the excitement of the changing street art and culture scene, bring that to people in new and exciting ways, both indoors and outdoors, and educate people on how the power of art and experience can really change minds and change lives. Based here in New York City, but really excited about getting started in the Middle East.
Great, thanks, Scott. Ankara and Nick.
Sure, you want to go first?
Oh, I was on mute, guys. Hi, I'm Ankor Amin. Greetings from New York. I'm the co-founder and CEO at TGS Holdings, which operates and owns Extra Butter and a few other sneakers and sportswear boutiques on the East Coast. My brother and partner Nick and I started Extra Butter in 2007 out of sheer passion for sneaker culture, and I've seen it grow into a pretty influential brand in the space. Two key reasons why EB has been so successful is due to its focus on storytelling and engagement with the community. Rich layered storytelling around products and putting premium on presentation has helped us elevate retail transactions into more of an experience. And consistent engagement with our community has enabled a deeper connection and a loyal consumer base for our brand. Currently, we're on a journey to add more doors internationally and nationally. Nick?
Hi, good morning, Ryan, Mick, pleasure as always. I am Nick Amin. I serve as the CFO of TGS Holdings, but as a partner, I do wear more than one hat. Ankor and I have been in the sneaker space and sportswear space since the mid-'80s. As first-generation immigrants to the US, we landed taking over a modest shop that my parents operated and grew it through passion and just sheer efforts. As Ankor stated, culture and community are cornerstones at Extra Butter. The brand was born of passion for sneakers, films, sports, and culture. And our aim is to continue to celebrate that.
Great, thanks, guys. Saud, last but not least.
Hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here, and thank you, Ryan and Mick, for hosting. I'm Saud. I'm the Chief Retail Officer for Aldar Properties. Aldar is based in Abu Dhabi, which is the capital of the UAE. My mission today is basically to reposition the retail landscape of Abu Dhabi. And, being part of that, Aldar, which is today has around $10 billion worth of assets it covers, across the region. I just came back actually from Egypt today morning, where we recently acquired one of the largest developers there called Sodiq. So we're aggressively growing. We're working with many partners, to grow, and we're working. We have a lot of flagship projects, especially in the retail sector. This is one of our, best projects, and it's called the Sadiyat Grove. It's based on Sadiyat Island. This literally sets the bar in real estate developments. There's nothing like it anywhere in the world. And it literally brings together great minds, cultures, religions, and I'll just walk you quickly through what we're trying to do here. You have the centerpiece, which is called the Saadiyat Grove, and it's surrounded by the most fascinating, unique museums. One of those which is already opened, it's the Louvre, which is the architect is John Neville. On the right of the Louvre is the Guggenheim, which is a Frank Gehry project, and the Sheikh Zayed Museum on the left, which is also, Sheikh Zayed is the late president of the United Arab Emirates, and his picture is right behind me. And that's where a lot of the UAE culture will be displayed. And in the middle of that sits the Saadiyat Grove. There's also the Abrahamic Family House, which is a church, a mosque, and a synagogue, which sits at the bottom right corner. And that's going to be, through history, where Abu Dhabi is setting, the bar for tolerance to accept all sorts of religions and people to be part of the community. Now, the Sadiyat Grove itself sits in the middle, and it has around 45,000 square meters of retail, 2 hotels, multiple residential buildings around it with branded residences, arts, culture, all coming together and connecting. And that's literally why we're here today, on this panel to talk about how we can bring different people together, build the communities, educate people about the region and connect things together. So thank you.
Thanks, Saud. That was a great introduction into the Grove. And I think as we're talking about, obviously, from transactional to cultural, and we're thinking about, what that means in the connective tissue between cultures. My first question actually is to Chiljun, and obviously after that, folks feel free to chime in. But obviously, all of your brands being very steeped in culture, Kinfolk Chiljun is a very cultural forward brand, obviously coming from the publishing background and kind of publishing a certain kind of lifestyle and aesthetic. I'm very curious how vital culture is to your brand and how you're bridging that culture when you go international, because obviously you've had a flagship store in Korea, but the brand coming from Copenhagen, you're moving to a lot of other regions around the world. I'm curious what culture means to you and how you bridge cultures.
Absolutely. So Ryan, first of all, thank you for asking me first. So I get to say this, that Kinfolk's mission is to build cultures and lifestyles. I'm sure everybody wants to say that, but I get to say it because I get to go first. But really, we're trying to build cultures and lifestyle that cut across all geographies and generations. And also those are more universal and timeless. So we're trying to do this by focusing on what I call 3 C's: culture, community, and content. So I think, Amin also already said culture and community a few times in his introduction. It will be the common theme, but culture is very important because it is the common language to build relationship that builds communities. We're trying to move from more transactional retail platforms to relationship-driven platform, which is a good thing. Obviously, if you think about all the loyalty economics by consultants and so on, that's the right thing to do, but it's much, much harder to do. But we're trying to use culture as the common language that builds trust, that shares values and principles and all that bring community together. Community is also very important because that's what builds culture. And this all adds up to our content and rounds our new business model and actually the mission of building a new ecosystem. So wherever we go, whether it's Korea, Copenhagen, or Abu Dhabi, wherever we go, we bring our existing culture and community, and we hope to add new dimensions to that and keep building it around the world. So it is essential and critical part of what we do.
Anahita, you, speaking of community, your product is about the theater of retail and the experience of retail. And you've even said that culture's the genesis of what you guys are about and what you do. Can you explain why this is important to you?
Absolutely. I mean, we were truly born out of art. Like I said, Frederick, he's an artist, filmmaker. So, he comes from that cinematic screenplay kind of approach to what we've done. And we kind of sit at the crossroads of art, science, and technology, and now, commerce at large. Our path has been to connect with audiences around the globe through art and design festivals. We're not found in retail, and not yet. And that's where our platform, which is, like I can mention, based on machine learning and needs humans to thrive and learn and interact with them, has been exposed to different places. We went to Cairo also recently, which was our first basically inroad into the Middle East. And we're super excited to be magnifying that journey there. We've been to Hong Kong, to Montreal, to New York and Europe. So a lot of, like I said, art and design festivals and primarily new media. So that's how, the world has gotten to know us. And we're now slowly bridging into more public facing locations. We're still very young in our journey. We're a young startup. And which is sort of what's interesting, I think, about what we've done is that it really came out of, like I said, this question of what if every human could create their own scent, created and perceived as a multi-sensory art installation, and then executed to the level that is required to make it work from a technical and also a user experience, and then where we're at, making it fully stable so that it can actually then be scaled up and shared with more people and in a more diverse, I would say, type of locations. So, we also come at it from a very, I would say, individual experience. The platform allows for a mediation, which is profoundly intimate. It's just you and our sensory machine and kind of the questionnaire that we put you through to carve out the space of thinking about yourself and your relationship to scent. And then within that, it's also a very exciting community platform, because you can pretty much then exchange your creations, which is something that we were deploying, and connect through a community of people who, by the way, are not necessarily even particularly interested in scent, which is what we've come to realize, but we're just interested in being part of the creative process and this, ritual of co-creation, which isn't fully, I would say, offered yet in retail as we know it. It's still quite transactional. It's been pre-made, and you buy it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we come from nothing. It's just an empty bottle. Creation process starts with you and it ends with you. So everything is made locally, on site, in real time.
Hey, you said art, science, and technology, and the convergence of these is kind of what the brand is about. And I actually want to pivot our question a little bit, go back to Saud. There's a really interesting idea around the Grove being rooted in the three museums and the Cultural Center of Abrahamic House and stuff, which became almost the impetus for the development of the whole project. What was it about the museum kind of museum first approach which led to this entire project? Was there any specific kind of vision around art first?
Look, Mick, I think Abu Dhabi as a whole, is very embedded into art, right?
So it seems to have some technical difficulties, not a very strong connection. Maybe you want to send a question to someone else, or.
Well, let's pivot this then maybe to Scott, because I think, Scott, we've kind of said that, forgive me, that you're the fourth museum, that forum becomes the thing that populates the kind of interstitial and creates the kind of the whole between the three museums and links the kind of retail, hospitality, residential to those three locations. Can you explain why you think this is important and vital for kind of community building?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the idea really behind Museum of the Street, this idea of how do you capture the energy and the excitement of global street art and graffiti, which really is about communication and expression, and bring that to folks in a more concentrated way, but educate them, create community, explore culture, and then sort of send them back out into the world, into the environment with fresh eyes. That's really at the heart of the idea of how Museum of the Street came together. The forum is the version of that we're excited about exploring with Aldar in the Grove. And it's the same type of concept, but given the fact that you have 3 world-class art institutions that are around, the role of the forum and Museum of the Street in the Grove is going to be different. The artwork there is really meant to still tell a story, to provide function, to take what is a mixed residential, commercial, and retail environment, provide art as a wayfinding tool, provide art as moments of surprise and delight, provide art as a way to connect the journey between those major institutions, and create a different type of conversation. And so, the way that we see art as a cultural experience and retail obviously evolving into something that's much more cultural, is that the forum, while it will have a physical presence within the Grove and art installations, some of which will be permanent and some of which will change over time, really is there to provide partnerships and opportunities for some of the retail activations as well. And so increasingly, as folks think about their own retail journey as a journey of discovery, finding new brands, finding the brands that they know and love and exploring them in different ways. The energy of street art and urban contemporary art is a perfect forum to have those exchanges. So you can imagine, a world-class brand, a storied brand that everyone knows, in the Grove, doing a collaboration with one of the artists from the forum for an installation in the front of their store, or a limited edition set of t-shirts or some type of item. And so, this idea of consumable culture and the fact that urban contemporary art and street art really is global art. The artists themselves are constantly traveling around the world, creating work wherever they are. And so the forum's activation in the Grove will very much capitalize on that energy and bring that energy to our various retail partners.
I think that's actually a great segue, probably to Nick and Anchor, because I think, obviously art creating culture and creating a deeper kind of realm for exploration and discovery. I think that, streetwear as a whole, and being a big streetwear head, similar to Nick, streetwear brands have really created their own cultures in a way, and their own communities around that culture. I'm curious for both of you how that resonates and how you can kind of carry on that culture in different parts of the world. I know you're obviously thinking about going to a lot of different places in the world, and you guys are this embedded, streetwear brand out of New York. How are you carrying that culture with you, and what does it mean for you to take that and to, bring cultures together even through streetwear?
Yeah, I mean, I think to what Scott said, we're in the consumable culture business. Cultures to us is created through storytelling. Stories and how they're told are what inspires people to create or make connections, and so forth. So I can relate to, all the panelists here. Culture is at the root of everything that we do at Extra Butter. We started on this journey, just doing things that we love to do, which is, we love films, we love sports, we love sneakers. And we at Extra Butter, we kind of speak to a generation that celebrate product in a very different way than I guess the generation before used to. I mean, they want a deeper connection with that product. They want in-depth details on where it was born and what the backstory is. And I think that's kind of what we do really well at Extra Butter. So I think that formula can translate globally. Yeah, that's kind of what I'd have to say about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, the brands that we work with really, they authenticate it and they create culture, sure. But retail companies like us, I think we take it to the next step, and we bring more validity by really storytelling and really celebrating the product with the consumers and creating that entire community that's kind of part of the product line. So, one of the questions we get asked all the time from vendors these days is, how do you create culture with our products? And that's really a fabulous question, because we're on the heart of product at the end of the day. And what we try to do is more and more storytelling outside of the product and how we generate the interest, whether it's film nights, whether it's storytelling nights, any form of communication that we could kind of cultivate the customer to the next level of thinking and staying with us. I think that's what we kind of work towards all the time.
I love that quote, Nick. How do you create culture without products? I'm sure that obviously applies to the art world as well, and
Sure.
probably everyone on this panel. So,
Apologies,
You know,
guys,
I want to give Saud a chance to jump back in because he was just starting to talk about how art is important in Abu Dhabi, and I wanted to, also let him expand on that a little bit more, and also talk about art in general as not just fine art, but the arts, as you know, you've been talking about how you're expanding into all the different kind of formats and mediums. So please, Saud, I know you had a little technical difficulties, but love to hear what you were having to say there about.
Is it clear now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, fantastic. Not sure what actually happened. So what I was saying is Abu Dhabi's vision as a whole is to expand its reach not only into art but also into gaming, tech, creativity, education, and the others, right? So and the museums itself is a major anchor and attraction, which brings together the Louvre, which comes from Paris, the Guggenheim, as well as the local culture, which is the Sheikh Zayed Museum. Now, connecting arts with people is a major play to bring creativity and talent. As you know, in the region itself, there's so much talent sitting there, right? And whether it's Lebanon or Saudi or around us, and there's just so many people that are craving to get a space where they could show their creativity. Now, what we're trying to build is bring communities together, collaborate, and then change the landscape of the normal, what you find today in regular modes, and want to be creative. So when we talk to brands as well, we try to give them more than what they want, to be able to show their product and showcase their story and their background, and bring in even a portion of the store, not even to sell, but also just to promote, and then connect that to display historical stories about the products and all of that stuff. So that's basically the arts brings creativity, which then connects into the space itself, and that's how we thrive and evolve.
I think sorry, Mick, let me just add one thing to what Saud was saying. Saud, I talked a little bit about Museum of the Street in the forum when you clicked off, but one thing you highlighted that I want to touch back on is collaboration. And so I talked a little bit about collaboration with retail partners, but one of the other, I think, really interesting ways for art to connect with local culture is, we work with global artists, and really excited about partnering with the local UAE artists as well. And so thinking about how, as we said, the historic and kind of globally important art that will live in these key museums really can have a dialogue with local artists and global artists who are coming through the region. And so that interaction brings a different level of engagement and understanding to folks as they're living, working, and visiting the forum. And so we're really excited about that element of collaboration as well.
That is the ecosystem, right? That is the ecosystem that is there. And I think that's what, not only in the art world, but also in the food world, the same tastes that want to come from the international world, bringing it to Abu Dhabi, connecting it with the local tastes, and then creating something very unique for the region.
I think,
do you
Scott,
want
you
to
read
chime
them up.
in? I saw you kind of raise your hand there, and I know that as a brand, collaboration is a really important part of what you're doing. And even when we were showing some of the kinfolk world, as you were speaking in your intro, collaboration was a common theme there. Can you expand on what Scott and Saud are talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually wanted to ask this question to the whole panel, but particularly to Scott, Nick, and Ankur, and then maybe Saud, is we're trying to build communities in an expansive way. As I said, we'd like to build the more universal, timeless sort of culture that cuts across generations and geographies. But one of the things that I sort of always kind of asked myself was maybe, priorities or sequence, but, slow living and essentialism and design and art all fit in very well with kinfolk. But I'm also, as you know, Meg, very interested in street culture, street fashion, and so on. How do I put those two together, or kinfolk and street culture? In appearance, I think they're almost the opposite. A lot of people will say, oh, they don't really come together. But I personally do not feel that's the case. But for the general public or the market, you need certain sort of sequential approach or brainwashing mechanisms to make sure that people are warmed up to accept. But I'm just very curious how you guys feel about this on the street culture side. How would you think about doing something with kinfolk, and does that create synergy or contrast, or what is it?
I feel like Jill Jr. asking Nick and I a question as the moderators. Love it. I don't know. Maybe we shoot it first over to Nick and Anchor because they might have some thoughts first. But we're happy to give our 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, collaborations are always welcome, right? It's street culture is really about that. It's art, and it's about creativity, and it's celebrating everything in every medium. Everything's kind of intersecting there right now anyway. The space and time, fashion's moving towards street. Athletes are dabbling in fashion. Just everything's intersecting here. So in terms of collaborating with kinfolk, I'm sure we can put together an idea that people are looking for. I mean, the consumer's at the heart of everything. What are they looking for? If we base every question with that, we'll figure it out.
The thing I'd add to that, the thing I would just add to that, and totally agree with Ankur, is that ultimately, I think it's really about authenticity. What the consumer is ultimately looking for, whether he or she realizes it, but they know it when they see it, is an authentic collaboration, right? If it's art washing a product to sell a product, there's a market for that, but it doesn't resonate. It doesn't build the brand. It doesn't build that level of engagement. And so, I think as we think about different partnerships that we've done, whether it's at a corporate level or at an individual level or at a product level, it's really about what's the authentic matchup of a particular artist with a brand or with a product, and that's sort of when the magic happens.
I agree. I can't agree more. I think authenticity is at the heart of just about everything. The consumer's so savvy now; he can sniff out fake like this. It's got to be real.
Yeah, I agree. I think. Sorry, Ryan, go for it.
No, I was just going to mention. I listened in on a panel yesterday, actually, with Matt from Neighborhood Goods, and he was saying something really similar, which was, that it's not about this marketplace of goods. It's really about people's tastes, and people are authentic with themselves. Then they have a multi kind of taste palette, right? So I can walk into a kinfolk and appreciate it as much as I can walk into an Extra Butter and appreciate it, right? And so people aren't these, one-dimensional shoppers or characters or even people. They have a lot of dimensions to them, and there's aesthetic that can kind of spread across. So I definitely see how collaboration, even between your guys' brands, if that's something you guys want to do at some point, could actually work, right? So
yeah, 100%.
Go ahead.
Yeah, CJ, I think that the question you were asking, with Extra Butter, it's just like any of the companies that you guys have here in the panel here. There's always abilities to bring in a new audience that doesn't exist in Extra Butter, and that would be the reason you would want to have kinfolk possibly doing something together with Extra Butter, right? So to me, I think authenticating it also it's vital that it's vouched for. So Extra Butter, if it works for kinfolk in the future, it not only does one and done. I think our audience is too smart to kind of figure out that this was a one-off situation, or there's a consistency in play. And the more you get consistency with our consumers, the more trust they kind of have gained over the years. So every partners we have brought in, I think it's always been more of a few-year plan, kind of bringing together and consistently work as a one message, what we're sending out to both different companies that we're working with, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I struggled in the beginning, but I feel more comfortable doing now is defining what slow living is, because it has the word slow. People think everything has to be really slow. Anything fast cannot really fit in, including sports or whatever. But actually, as I ponder on this question for a number of years, I'm sure you guys will all agree it's less about the appearance and aesthetics, but more about the state of mind. And I always kind of say that it's not about sort of having a nice, slow living style in Portland or whatever, which is great, but that's not just it. But it's really the state of your mind, and any creativity cannot exist without a moment of slowness in your mind in whatever time of the day. So, you know, anybody in Manhattan or Brooklyn like Mick, or in Berlin, they can have a slow living, except it's a different type of slow living. And in that sense, my answer was, you know, all the cool things about creativity and authenticity can come all together to create something very new for the next generation.
And Anahita, I want to put you on the spot again.
Yeah.
I know I'm picking on you, but
No, and I actually, this conversation, sorry to cut your question, I'll let you, but just to finish on this, as I was listening to, the topic of collaboration and how it applies to what we have created, it's actually super interesting because our collaboration is kind of with our people, in the sense that we've created a platform that allows them to be their own brand, right? So we're not coming with, you know, like I said, pre-existing product, which doesn't mean that we cannot do collaborations, because the platform is also conceived in that way that, let's say, whoever you may be, and you want to create your scent, and then you want your, you know, communities to be able to smell it. Of course, that's something we do and we love and we'd love to push. But our initial pact is with the user, and this collaborative creative process that they get into. And then, you know, when you said, Ryan, about, you know, this multi-taste, you know, it really truly is that, in the sense that we almost do not behave as a tastemaker per se, because we haven't created a collection, you know, that's specific to a certain audience. We behave as a not to make it sound, you know, political, but almost like a democratic enabler that allows anyone, whatever their taste may be, to just take part in this process of creation of a scent that's such a, you know, personal marker of your presence in, you know, in the world. So it was just interesting because it got me thinking about, you know, our different levels of collaboration and where it actually starts. Back to your question. Sorry, I hijacked your question.
no, you didn't. You didn't actually hijack it. You answered it. I was going to talk about the individual versus the collective, and that the community that you're building is a community of individuals that have
absolutely
their decision making.
Yeah. I mean, we're celebrating, and you know, that's why the brand is called Every Human. You know, and our symbol is the upside down A, the universal quantifier, that, you know, in math means something is true for each, every, and all. So this, you know, belief of for each, every, and all is really at the basis of, let's celebrate the singularity of each and every one of us. And then, of course, there's things that connect us as humans universally. And then that's when we get into the, you know, the more community and the things that we share, and how I'm coming from wherever I'm coming. And then, you know, we can bounce off of each other. And that's really, I think, a really powerful component of the experience as we see it. People come at it very, you know, again, going back to what you were talking about slow living, you know, this moment of slowness that the experience opens up. I'm just thinking about myself. What is it that I want? And very quickly, we see that they start connecting with whomever else is there sitting next to them doing the experience. Because scent is also such a conversation opener, right? It's, you know, we think of ourselves as a sensory gateway. It makes you travel in time and space. And just one trigger of any smell, and here we go, having kind of the deepest conversations with strangers that otherwise would not happen. So the quality of interaction, I think, that we're also able to have is really what excites me kind of the most. It's really about meeting humans, creating a space, you know, call it a retail space if we need to call it that, but, you know, I almost think that doesn't even apply anymore. You know, it's a space, it's a location where they can come and just sort of be and celebrate themselves and connect with, you know, like-minded people. And I think that's really the root of retail,
You know, what I like about what you said about like space, if you want to call it that, is debatable. I'll go on a rant for 2 seconds here. It's argued that J.C. Nichols was like the first one to plan retail development. I know we have a visitor on here from Kansas City, so we'll shout out to Kansas City. But in like the 20s, J.C. Nichols planned the plaza. But when he planned the plaza, it was, I want to build a retail destination. So let's put living and business and design it around Seville, Spain, right? So they created a kind of a fake narrative to attract, and it worked. Listen, it worked. It's still a thriving district. But what's interesting, and maybe this is a question for Saud, is how do you create a platform that allows for culture to happen as opposed to a fake culture? And I think that's something that I see really strongly. What's happening in the Grove is that you're approaching all of these great groups here and saying, come to the Grove and help us build something, as opposed to saying, here's a microcosm of Seville, Spain, as J.C. Nichols did in 1920, and come shop here.
Of course, I mean, look, today we're living the moment, right? And today streetwear is the trend. 2 years down the line, it's definitely going to be there, but then the way you look at it will be definitely different. And 5 or 10 years down the line, it'll probably be in the digital world, right? With all the new trends that's coming up. And I think it's quite an early stage today, but I'm getting into the NFT world recently, and I've bought my first one a couple of weeks back. And why? Because I want to be part of that community, right? So similar to that thought process, how can you create that ecosystem to connect the different minds, whether it's through people or through events or through living or through retail, as well as everything that's in the surrounding spaces. So trying to live the moment, but also looking at how the future will come and working towards it with great minds is the way I would see it.
Let me just add one thing, Ryan, to what Saud was saying, just on the digital side. I'm involved in digital asset businesses as well. And I think one of the really interesting things is as people learn about NFTs and digital assets and the metaverse broadly, people scratch their head and say, are we all going to sort of be sitting in front of computers? And I think the answer is the digital assets are actually really interesting ways to take the experiences that people have in real life and extend them or create mementos or ways to connect them back to those experiences or those objects or those moments. And so I think the Grove is actually going to be a really interesting sort of laboratory for how digital assets can enhance the experience, again, of sort of living there, shopping there, experiencing art and culture there. So I fully expect that NFTs and digital assets will be something that become quite pervasive when the Grove opens.
I mean, Scott, I feel like you're reading my mind today. That was actually our next question, is because, like, again, culture is something that so many people say, like, it has to be experienced in person, which is something that we're trying to do with the ecosystem of the Grove, is that you want to experience it in person. You want to walk into the Louvre and then walk out of the Louvre and walk into Extra Butter, or, see, art that's being hung. You want to get that vibe. I'm curious, and obviously starting with you, Scott, how can you create that in the digital sense, especially with something like street art? And then for everyone else, obviously, Anahita, I know that's pretty hard with Scent. How are you bringing people in digitally? I'm just curious about the challenges that you guys see in terms of bridging culture through digital and how that works.
Yeah, I'll start. I think digital is just another tool. That we can have a whole separate conversation about blockchain and where the world is going. But the way I think that we think about it is ownership of a digital asset is just another media tool to connect people back to culture. And in some ways, Saud, the NFT you bought, that could be the only piece of art, right? There are digital artists who are creating work that's only going to live in a digital form. But then there are other digital assets or NFTs that are almost like tickets, right? They commemorate an experience, but because they can contain multi forms of media and they can change over time, they actually have a connection back to that experience or that culture that can change, build, grow, and connect back to a community. So I don't see the digital side as a replacement. I see it as an extension and an amplification kind of along the journey. And that applies to art, it applies to music, it applies to fashion. And then as the technology evolves, that blending through AR and VR will start to become a little bit more interesting and pervasive. And, the work that Anahit is doing, being very specific on a one-to-one basis around sense. Digital assets will start to have some of those same characteristics where, those objects will start to behave and interact differently for each person. But, we're at the beginning of that journey.
It's a great segue maybe to the last question, because I know we're running out of time and this has been a great panel and I want everyone to chime in, but it's kind of like we're talking about something that we know is coming, but it's already here. The digital experience as an extension of the physical experience and stuff. So if we can think about like what's the hot impact that culture is going to have on the Grove specifically? Is it the digital extension of the physical experience? Is it the platform for creators to be able to come and do something? Is it, a collection of individuals, as Anahita was kind of alluding to, as opposed to a hive mentality? What do we think is the right solution for something like the Grove? I'll leave it open.
I'll just throw a few words because this is a big topic. But I kind of the word that Anahita used about democratization, I think that's a key word that I think through these technologies and different platforms like the Grove and so on, it'll open up opportunities where there's no longer sort of a supplier versus a customer, but sort of customers as creators and creators as customers. So everybody can actually participate and do their own thing. Rather than just kind of watching. I think that's the key opportunity that allows us to create bigger and more engaged community based on sort of common values and principles.
Yeah, I also say it's about stories, right? And I think that's an important word, is whether it's a brand or a person sharing his story. And if they see a connection with the other, then something comes together and there's an outcome that is special. And I think that is something that I see happening a lot, whether it's physically throughout physical space or on the digital space as well. And I think that's something quite powerful that I think will happen a lot and more often in the future.
Anahita, I saw you shuffling in your seat.
No. It was a shuffle of excitement, first of all. I can't wait to get there. No, I think it's all been said. I think the future is about that, recognizing the individual, but not in a way that isolates us, but at the same time offering spaces, technology, whatever it may be that connects us even more strongly, but having a balance in that. Let me be me in the world, and then let's move together, in this world. So I think whatever experiences, products kind of showcase that type of philosophy. And I go back to what is really important for us, this idea of human agency, and not as a form of activism, but as a form of, participation and understanding of how things are made and where they come from, which was also touched on. I think those are all the societal themes and what's in the pulse of now, which obviously then translates to whatever the future of retail, which is nothing other than communities coming together around topics of interest, right? It's not so foreign from just our everyday living, and the ways and the places we want to be. So I think in that sense the Grove is is super exciting because it allows for this diversity in this realm of possibility, which which enables brands which are, atypical and coming from culture and not the, the formulated recipes for success to actually have a future. Because as we know, it's at least for us, it's a real challenge to stay true to something which is an artistic identity while, meeting the commercially viable, things that we need to do, obviously, to make it sustainable art and culture. So
yeah, and I think that sums it up really well. And I know we have to end this this panel, but I have to say that this conversation that we've had here today is kind of a tribute to what I think Aldar is trying to do with the Grove. It's bringing together. I was going to say like-minded, but it isn't like-minded. It's individuals with great ideas into an area, a concentrated area, and allow them the kind of freedom and opportunity to do what they do best, to create almost like a spark of culture as opposed to create a false culture. And so I love what Nick and Ankur were talking about in terms of like storytelling and giving a platform for that storytelling to happen. And then also what both Saud and Chuljun and Scott have all mentioned, this kind of underlying theme about authenticity. When we first started talking to Aldar 2 years ago about the Grove and about how to kind of bring the right brands to the region, that was actually the root of the conversation with Saud, was the authentic brands. And even large brands, how do you bring the right version of those brands? Is it the Nike by Melrose versus the giant Nike store? Like what's the thing that's more specific to a neighborhood? And that's the kind of approach that kicked off this entire project. What's the more authentic version of a place? And how do you bring that? And that's evolved into this amazing development. And we're just excited to be a part of it. I want to thank Saud and the panelists for joining. And I want to thank Aldar for taking on such an impressive project. We can share links to everything, to all the participants that have joined and watched this panel. But thank you guys again for everything. Ryan, did you want to say anything in closing?
I think, just what you mentioned, I just piggyback off and it just for one more thought, which is that bringing people together and having collaboration really be at the center point of culture, I think is so valuable. I think it's something that when you really go around the world, you can see great retail developments, but they're really, I think, a lot of times missing the aspect of bringing in other cultures, other people's thoughts, mindsets, not just obviously from the arts and what we've been speaking about here, but even broader as what Saud was alluding to with, food and beverage. And I know that Aldar has big plans for obviously bringing a whole new kind of, thought and kind of manifest to the culinary arts to the Grove as well. So I think, just that idea of interacting and bringing it together is so important. And so on that note, I'm really glad that we could bring all of you guys here together today to share your thoughts on it, on how culture is kind of at the center point of your brands, and at the same time, how that is going to intersect with the Grove, which is obviously going to be the center point or the epicenter of culture, at least the way that we see it in the Middle East in the future. So thanks everyone for joining. Panelists, thank you for your time today. And I know that the team at PSFK are going to be, obviously we're recording, so feel free to obviously view on your own time or watch later or send along to other folks that might be interested.